So we continue from the great Drikung teachings to the assembly. If you have the book, this is now at page 132. In general, when someone meets a realized master yogi, a master practitioner, one who is practicing the path, and then if someone meets a realized master yogi, it doesn't matter what object is used for resting one pointedly in meditative absorption. A single pointing out instruction, meaning a specific instruction that a realized master has the ability, the power to give for a very specific situation, such a kind of instruction, a single pointing out instruction from them will actually be sufficient. So no need all kinds of complex explanations, because a realized master has the power to discern, what is most needed by that particular student. For example, when Master Arya Nagarjuna had Master Nagabodhi meditate on a tree, to meditate that a tree had grown on top of his head, Nagabodhi's mind came to rest one-pointedly and attained stability, which is the meditative absorption of calm abiding. So then Nagabodhi's mind became, stable. The master's single word of pointing out was so appropriate that he later became famous as the accomplished master yogi Nagabodhi, meaning that the master, meaning single word of pointing out, Nagarjuna. So Nagarjuna's instruction was so spot on that later Nagabodhi, that used to be a gatherer of firewood, became a great master known as Nagabodhi. Once Nagabodhi's mind was focused one-pointedly on that tree, it was empty of any other elaboration. It became so stable that, all the other thoughts, all the other emotions subside, such as desire, aversion, and even loving kindness, bodhicitta, and so forth, subsided. Of the four yogas, and so now Jikten Sumgön is linking this attainment, the attainment of the stability of the mind, to a slightly different system of articulating what the path consists of. And this one is called the four yogas. And the four yogas were particularly used by Kyopa Jikten Sumgön. By the Kyopa Jikten Sumgön's grandmaster, Gampopa. As the four yogas of Mahamudra. And so he says this is the equivalent of, in the four yogas, way of talking about the path, and this is the one-pointedness, single-pointed mind. It is also the stage of isolation of mind, as taught in the 5 stages of Arya Nagarjuna. It is also the same as the 3 states of mind at the time of death, which is followed by luminosity. So there's some footnotes, about these. So these are, Kyopa Jikten Sumgön just matching with systems of practice and stages of path that he knows his audience, has familiarity with. Yeah, so he's just pointing out to them. So, because in each of these other systems, right, there are kind of, you could say, fancy vocabulary, in the four yogas, the first is the single pointedness, or in those schooled in the 5 stages of Aya Nagarjuna's system of practice. That one is more explicitly Vajrayana, whereas the four yogas is more in the Mahamudra. And then there's 3 states of mind at the time of death, and that has to do more with instructions on like the bardos. And so Kyoba is using 3, because remember, he's teaching now to an assembly, and he knows. So imagine him looking across, looking into the gathering. He knows, these they are familiar with this system. They're familiar with this. They're familiar with this. So really, for us, yes, we can read the footnote, but then it won't mean much, because this is not what we are familiar with. Then I think a lot of times, when we read books like this, we get carried away. We're like, ooh, I really like that 5 stages. Then now let me go Google what the 5 stages are. Ooh, I like this. Particularly I think this one, the 3 states of mind at the time of death. Ooh, I want to know that. So then we go read. Then what happens is we have lost the main point. The main point is letting the mind settle and become stable, unmoving. And we go off in a tangent, like the other footnote, right? If you go up, the whole will of nectar, it says, so at the bottom of 131, the inner moral ethics of the mind, or the inner disciplined conduct of the mind, should be the discontinuation of the 3 afflictions in the mind: anger, attachment, and ignorance. The disciplined conduct of secret mantrayana, the secret mantra, should be the will of nectar. And I said that I'm not sure about, the identification of this. This footnote identifies it with a wrathful deity. It could be the wrathful deity, but then when we last discussed it, I said, this may have to do, I said, the will of nectar may have to do with the will of joy. So instead of nectar, joy, maybe the will of nectar is used as a substitute for the will of joy. So then I tried to link that with the Shravasti meditation, where it says, at this stage you train in happiness, then you're trained in joy. Sukha followed by piti. And when I said it might be that, referring to that, again, it was my side looking out at you guys and thinking, maybe this will make a connection for you to something you're familiar with, which, I have talked about in the Anapanasati, what His Holiness has brought together as the Shravasti meditation curriculum, which is based on the Anapanasati 16 stages. So there is the stage of experiencing sukha, usually translated as happiness or bliss even. Then the experience of piti, the experience of joy, as these 2 states of mind. And then again, in the context of the 16 stages, this is to do what? To allow the mind to attain stability. Yeah? To allow the mind to attain stability, to not move around so easily. But then, of course, when I started talking about sukha and piti, then we got distracted again. And then afterwards, people Googled, oh, Vajrayana, bliss, desire, is this how you transform desire? Is this like the 4 tantric forms of joy, great joy, descending joy, So easily we get distracted, and miss the main point. How to let the mind settle. And the main point, right, in this teaching is, Gyoba is saying, if your mind don't settle, if you don't settle your mind don't settle sounds like it's some magic that happens by itself. If you don't settle your mind, if you don't settle your heart, then you're not going to make much progress. The more important point, again, in this particular teaching is then also he says, and in order to settle the heart, techniques are secondary to attitude. Techniques are secondary to attitude. The attitude is the attitude of put it down. Put it down already. Put it down already. Don't carry it around. Don't let it drag you around. So, determination. Oh, how do I cultivate determination? Again, we're always hoping for some magic pill that we can take. Oh, now I'm determined to put it down because I took the pill. Don't we wish, a pill can solve? And the same, right? This psychology, take a pill, you'll lose weight. Yeah, there's a million, if not billion-dollar industry, right? Take a pill and you'll lose weight. You don't need to miss any new releases on Netflix. You can continue to eat whatever you want to eat. Take this pill and you'll lose weight. So likewise in Dharma practice, we're constantly thinking this pill or that pill, so to say. Yeah. It doesn't work like that, So keep developing determination. Right? And Buddha does show, okay, how do you develop determination? Determination has to come from understanding. How do you develop understanding? Keep attending this. Or something like this. And so that you could, right, marinate your mind. So that you can marinate your mind. If you can poke some holes, into your mind, it's just like if you can poke some holes into your tofu, it marinates better. Here's a secret tip. Get your tofu, stick it in the freezer, let it freeze over, take it out, and then when the water melts, then all these pockets of holes will manifest in your tofu, and then you can press all the water out. Then when you marinate, you only need 15 minutes. Your tofu will be completely delicious. Stick it in the freezer, let it freeze over, bring it out. Then all the water comes out. Yeah. Then all the holes, Yeah, so we need to poke holes, in our rigid mind. Then let it marinate in these teachings, in such kinds of teachings. Not just from me, go listen to anyone you want. But make sure that the whoever is teaching is taking this approach, have this understanding that there's no magic pills that you take, but rather first you need to have determination. So that all that talk about Shantideva's chapter 8, meditative concentration, there, Shantideva is using different kinds of reasonings, which is different ways of poking holes into the tofu brain of yours and mine, so to say, so that these words can sink in, can marinate. Then we become more and more determined. Then when we have the determination to relinquish, to put it down, then the mind settles. And then we're settling the mind. Then this is like the swirl of nectar. The very kind of like, almost like, wait, what? What's that reference? Again, because we forget, Jikten Sumgön is looking out into a specific gathering. And he knows, those people there, that, or even just that person over there, And if it is indeed referring to a wrathful deity, as the footnote suggests, the swirl of nectar, then there, if indeed is referring to the wrathful deity, then there it's saying, this wrathful deity, Amrita Kundali, is often used in ritual context, used as in ritual context, you muster up, or you summon, or you generate the Tsikilwa, this Amrita Kundali, a wrathful looking deity whose job is to dispel stains and obscurations, particularly to dispel stains, that which is unclean, from the offerings, from the offering substances, from the ritual objects. And so it's a type of cleansing. And so if indeed Jikten Sumgön is referring to this wrathful deity, then he is saying here, you want your mind to settle, you want your mind to become even, to become stable, you have to be like the wrathful deity. Wrath means determined. Wrathfully, powerfully, determinedly, in a determined way. Block out, push out, say, be done, be gone, finish, go away. We do this movement. It's like with the bumpa, then we imagine or visualize Amrita Kundali, as the bumpa as Amrita Kundali. Then with the peacock feather dip, you shake the vase, and it touches some water. Then you take the dip out and you go this way. That means out, out, be gone, be gone. Then the mind, you see, continuing from there, the mind with all of these will be free from regret and able to abide in one-pointed meditative absorption. Not abiding by these levels of disciplined conduct, a mind with regret won't be able to abide. A mind without regret means a mind that is, we could say, our conscience is free. So again, that part is emphasizing disciplined conduct. The vows, the precepts, not just the external aspects, but the inner aspects. Yeah. And then, of course, when Jikten Sumgön is using saying, oh, this is the equivalent of that, this is the equivalent of that. Then again, us, we know too much, but we don't know enough. So then we get distracted. The main point of what is being taught, we miss. Yeah, so then at the bottom, of the 4 yogas, this is the one-pointedness. In the 5 stages of Nagarjuna, this is called isolation of mind. In the 3 states of mind at the time of death, this is the same as that. To realize that these 3 states of mind at the time of death, I am not sure. So in the footnote, it provides one explanation. Chiwe Sim Sum refers to the 3 experiences called light, increase of light, and attainment of light. These are commonly called the 3 lights, and are another set of stages in Nagarjuna's explanation of the completion stage. To me, I think more to the point here is, so based on what I know, just a little bit, in the teachings about the dissolution of the mind, the dissolution stage at the time of death, the 3 states of mind happens first before the luminosity is experienced. And during these 3 states of mind that has been experienced, like it's called, right, the white illuminating, red increasing, and black near attainment. Some of you may remember this vocabulary. So your experience like this, all pervasive kind of, like on a night where the sky is really clear, it's coming up tonight, between tonight and tomorrow, is in the Chinese culture is called the mid-autumn moon. It's supposed to be the brightest moon of the year. And so if there's a clear sky, and then if you go to a place without a lot of light pollution, good luck for most of you, but some of us in Western North Carolina, you can still find places like this. If you go out, when the moon is fully, already in the sky, there is a sheen of like white light that covers everything. And so it's sometimes compared to that, so that happens. Then secondly, and the next stage, then red increasing is when it's like at right before dawn is compared to that. There is a redness that pervades everything. Then black near attainment, they call it, which is like pitch darkness. So more to the point, there is actually not these visual experiences. In fact, it's not visual, although the imagery I mean, how it's expresses is visual. This is not someone that as you're dying, what your eyes see, what the mind experiences, right? But more important than this is what corresponds, which is first, all the thoughts related to anger dissolves. Then all the thoughts that are related to aversion dissolves. Then finally, all the thoughts and emotions related to ignorance dissolve. I think this is the context here. Again, because it's talking about, right, all disturbances, all the coarse and subtle disturbances to the mind's ability to just abide is removed. And so again, the emphasis is you have to be determined. You have to be determined to let the mind, to allow the mind to settle. So I say allow the mind to settle, because the mind, if you allow it, it will settle. If you provide it with the right circumstance, the right conditions, it will settle. So there is simultaneously both work to do and nothing to do. Work to do is provide the circumstances. Nothing to do is you cannot force the mind to settle. It's like yelling at it, settle, settle. Cannot do that. When both calm abiding and insight have become inseparable in the single taste of insight, so then insight is also important. So that the mind has settled, become stable, you still have to bring understanding, insight. When this has become a single taste, then this is insight, well endowed with calm abiding. So here he doesn't talk much about the insight, because here again, in this teaching he gave, right, teaching number 13, on the 13th day of these month-long teachings, he wants to emphasize the importance of training to let your mind settle, to become stable. And so he doesn't say much about the insight. Insight into what? What is the content of this insight? Except a little bit, he did talk about, right? Earlier on, remember? It talked about the nature of this mind. That is the insight part. Like it is like glass or crystal, it says, right? And no matter how, so when you put this glass, little pane of glass onto a gray surface, it will appear gray. You put it onto a, orange red surface, it will appear like that. But its own nature is that it is without these characteristics. And yet, when it coincides with these conditions, it can take on temporarily the appearance of these conditions. And that is related to insight, okay? And then he felt, that, he needs to give almost like a footnote. He says, however, it is not yet the stage of the single taste in the four yogas. Now, of course, you could say, wait, I thought you said it was. Unfortunately, the person who recorded this didn't say, somebody put their hands up and said, can you please explain further? Probably also possible nobody asked for that. People are just like, wonder what that means. Then they say, okay, let's keep practicing. But then when we get to the single taste in the four yogas, then we'll see. See, sometimes that's what we need to know how to do also. It's quite a skill, knowing when to ask and knowing when to just say, let's see. Let's see. The summary. To sum it all up, we can't tell which will come first, tomorrow morning or death. Whether from a worldly or a dharma perspective, there has never been anyone who doesn't die. Therefore, stop all worldly elaborations, stop all worldly busyness, and accomplish the meditative absorption of calm abiding and insight. Since their essence is awakening to Buddhahood, please be very careful in this. That is the teaching. For those of you who have not yet retired, be careful when you come to the opportunity, the time when you can retire. Meaning, let me give you something to consider, as you get closer and closer to, time for retirement, right? think about the possibility and the attractiveness of, I'm going to turn Amish. That's what I'll do for retirement. I'll turn Amish. What does that mean? Think about it. Huh. Yes. Huh. And think about it. The 14th teaching. The precious teacher taught the following. 14th teaching. Okay, all these topics, titles, subtitles. Know that, Kyoba Rinpoche didn't start the teachings by saying, self-grasping. Now, he didn't do that. He turned up each day at the appointed time. He looked across the gathering and he taught. Yeah. So again, don't get too distracted by these chapter titles. The precious teacher taught the following. From what cause does samsara, this ocean of suffering, arise? So yesterday, right, teaching 13, he addressed this. He raises this question. So 127 page. What is the cause from which samsara and its three realms, the ocean of suffering, arises? It arises from a distracted mind. So yesterday he said that. Now today he says, from what cause does samsara, this ocean of suffering, arise? From grasping at a self. And so today he's going to explain it from this, looking at the problem from this side, and then looking at the problem from that side, and looking at the problem from this side, and then that side. So today he's going to emphasize grasping at a self. So I don't know if, Jikten Sumgön has, in Tibetan, there is the equivalent, It arises from grasping at a self. So this is what we have done, in the translation, what they have done in the translation, and what? Self. Yeah. From what cause does the nirvana of the three kinds of awakening arise? From the absence of grasping at a self. As long as grasping at the self isn't abandoned, there will arise attachment to those who treat us kindly, aversion to those who harm us, and deluded indifference for those we are neither attached nor averse to. Out of such a mind combined with the three afflictions, meaning attachment, aversion, and ignorance, deeds are done with body, speech, and mind, and from them, samsara, with its three lower states and so forth, this ocean of suffering arises. Then he quotes from a very famous Indian commentary or source, which is Dhammakirti's commentary on valid knowledge, where Dhammakirti says, this is the Indian Dhammakirti, by the way, he says, when there is a self, meaning when there is this notion, the within quotes, basically you can translate this, when there is this notion, when there is this belief, when there is this concept of self, meaning me, as opposed to you, he says, when there is a notion of this self, then immediately there is the thought of other. From this pair of self and other arise attachment and aversion. So first, because of the ignorance, the confusion, that gives rise to, self. And then once self turns up, other turns up. Then from the self and other becoming more and more even exaggerated, then arise attachment and aversion. From affiliation with these two, all faults arise. Which is to say, this transitory collection of aggregates is grasped onto as a self. So this notion of self, this mistaken notion of self, this mistaken notion of I, it didn't come from completely nowhere. It was generated in relation to a collection of transitory aggregates. So Buddha discussed, the 5 types of aggregates that then aggregates together, then becomes the basis of imputing this mistaken self. Based on that, grasping at self and other, self, other, arises. And because of that, grasping at self and other, we wander in samsara, in this ocean of suffering. And so this is looking at, right, where this samsara come from. It comes from grasping at this mistaken notion of self, mistaken notion of I. Freedom. How to become free? With regard to the nirvana of the 3 kinds of awakening, whether the awakening of a hearer, a shravaka, or a solitary realizer, a pratyeka Buddha, or a full and complete Buddha, with regards to the nirvana, the state of peace, the state of quiescence, that is related to these 3 types of awakening, when a mind that is free from self-grasping is governed by an aspiration to awakening of that of a hearer, then the awakening of that of a hearer will be attained. When the mind that is free from self-grasping is governed by an aspiration to the awakening of a solitary realizer, then the state of a solitary realizer will be attained. When the mind that is free from self-grasping is governed by an aspiration to unsurpassable awakening, then unsurpassable awakening will be attained. And so here Gilbert wants to emphasize, whichever of the 3 bodhis, whichever of the 3 aspirations to bodhi that you have, if, it's governed by freedom from self-grasping, then it will lead to the goal of nirvana. But of course, in his context to his disciples, the aspiration should be that of unsurpassed awakening. When the mind that is free from self-grasping is governed by an aspiration to unsurpassed awakening, then unsurpassable awakening will be achieved. These 3 kinds of awakening have a single essence in that they are the mind free from self-grasping. So he says, whether it's that of a full Buddha, whether it's that of a solitary Buddha, whether it's that of a hearer Buddha, a mind free from self-grasping, it's its key defining characteristic. So here, to place it within broader context, sometimes, people say, and you read, in books, it says, according to the Mahayana, followers of those who advocate giving rise to unsurpassed awakening rather than the other 2 types of awakening, according to them, those who follow the other 2 ways, the way of the hearer and the way of the solitary realizer, they have attachment to self. Because they're not thinking of all others, they only think of themselves, so they have self-attachment, self-grasping. Here, Kyoba says, actually, no. If they actually achieve bodhi, then self-grasping is not there. Where there is self-grasping, there is no bodhi, there's no awakening. Yeah. So then, a footnote. Then you say, well, then what makes the difference in the three? The unsurpassed Buddha. So all three are without self-grasping. But for those who are aiming for the state of unsurpassable awakening, complete and perfect Buddhahood, for those, not only there's no self-grasping, there is the active cultivation of the big mind, of the great concern. Yeah? So the single essence in all three is a mind free from self-grasping. What is this mind free from self-grasping like? It is your present mind itself. So then, rhetorically, so what does this mind free from self-grasping looks like? It almost sounds like it's something so distant from us, so foreign from us, so seemingly impossible. But then he says, it is your present mind itself, right now, this present mind, but empty of grasping at an I and mine. Take this space right now, space here, for example. Its nature is unconditioned throughout the three times, meaning whether it's yesterday, whether it's today or tomorrow, it is free from conditions. That is also what space in the past was, also what space in the future will be, and also what space in the present is. It is unconditioned. Space doesn't change. So the space, this space, which is the nature of mind, this nature of mind, whether in the future, whether in the past, or right now, it is also unchanging. This is what Kyopa Jikten Sumgön intended when he taught these lines. So again, quoting these two, which he already quoted in the beginning, or in the last teaching. Not sure if this is exactly Jikten Sumgön himself who said this, or again the compiler. In this case, the compiler of these teachings is Drakpa Jungne. And Drakpa Jungne is the successor number 3. When we were chanting this morning, the first successor was Khenchen Sutrim Doje. Second successor was Onchen Sonam Drakpa. Third successor was Drakpa Jungne. And last Friday, I talked a little bit about the history of the lineage in terms of the succession, and why Khenchen Sutrim Doje succeeded him first, and then his nephew, the great nephew Onchen Sonam Drakpa, and then Drakpa Jungne, not family, came back to hold the leadership position. Then after Drakpa Jungne is Chung O Doje Drakpa, I think. Chung O, again, there is the little nephew, the great nephew and the little nephew, the younger nephew. So this is compiled by Drakpa Jungne. And Drakpa Jungne quotes these two prayers from the Ultimate Seven Limbs and the Previous Life of Jikten Sumgön. He says, this is the nature of mind, and this is what we're talking about. Yeah? Yes, Judy.
So when you're talking about, or we're talking about the space that we are in currently, it is conditioned by what's in it. It doesn't change. Space doesn't change, but the conditions within it change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing as our mind.
Mm-hmm.
Conditions that
what
are...
turns up in the mind changes, like the furniture in the room that you're in, like the absence of you, the presence of you, the absence of your out-of-town visitors and the presence of your out-of-town visitors, all of that comes and goes.
Just like the furniture in a room.
Yes.
It makes it clearer.
Yeah, the cat, no more cat. Hopefully nobody ate the cat.
I'm protecting him.
Oh, good.
Thank you. That really helps.
Yeah. And so it says that space, that basic space in your mind, that basic characteristic of mind is also like that, So here he says, this is as it is intended in these lines. Mind itself is the intrinsic body, effortlessly present and unconditioned beyond word, thought, knowledge, and description. To this precious mind I bow down. Or in the praises of the previous birth of Pamudrupa, I bow down to the Guru, the Lama, the nature of the three times and great bliss. Or in the translation that we have, I have it as the nature of bliss that is throughout the three times, something like that. All pervasive but without form and free from coming and going, whose nature is the Dharmakaya and effortless presence, the unchanging Vajra body. So here he refers to the mind that is timeless in the three times. Once this nature of mind is realized, samsara, this ocean of suffering, is abandoned, and one of the awakenings will be attained in accordance with the previous resolution. What is the resolve? To achieve the awakening of a hearer, of a solitary realizer, or to a complete and perfect Buddha. They all, the awakening that arises has same essence, but you can say then what's the difference is the magnitude of it. The first two, let's just say, has the same essence, but the magnitude is not fully, it's not the full extent. It's a portion of it, and the larger portion of it, but not yet to the full extent. And to achieve this freedom from grasping, therefore the end of samsara, to achieve that in its fullest extent, and in its fullest extent, it also has the it also has the effect of being able to help others. So that's what makes the awakening of a Buddha, a complete and perfect Buddha, the fullest extent of awakening. So we will stop here today. And then we continue tomorrow. Changju Samjo Rinpoche Ma Ge Ba Nam Ge Gyu Che Ge Ba Nyam Ba Me Ba Yang Gong Ne Gong Du Bel Wan Shu. So, tata.